to get to 23 cards, playing a full play set of Dragon Scale boons.
And I predicted it correctly. 17 lands and one of the 2 Tusk Colossedons.
Yep, 17 lands, 9 forests, 8 plains. Almost makes you think we're playing core set.
All 4 of the Dragon Scale boons as well.
All of them.
This is the strategy, such as it is.
Ben was his player on the right of Frank. Did end up with some of these cards that he was passing through. 2 Snowhorn Riders and a Trap Essence, both in Ben's deck.
And critically, Frank is on the play, which I think is the most important thing for his deck.
Yeah, and there's a chance here. We did see that Frank's deck didn't end up very well, that the entire table kind of crashed together. We'll see if that happens. Both players starting out on a lot of basics here. Looks like Ben will have the first play, however. So it's going to be Wetland Sandbar.
And this is kind of bad news for Frank's deck because his deck is really predicated on getting out to the early jump here.
We talked about one of the best things his deck can do is Abzan Falconer into Dragon Scale Boon. Well, here's the Falconer for him. And you have to assume there's a boon in his hand, right? He's got 4.
He does. He is playing all 4 on top of, I believe, yes, 1 copy of Feat of Resistance as well.
And a Morph will be the play for Ben Williams. And pass back Sandbar, already held back by the imposing 2-3 from Frank Karsten.
One of the best non-rares in the set. And besides Wingmate Rock, the second best card Frank is bringing to battle with his last draft deck.
I mean, this guy plus a Dragon Scale Boon can just end the game by itself. See a Morph from Frank, but he doesn't have the 4th land for the boon either. This can be really difficult for his deck. His deck really clogs up at the 4-mana spot.
And that would be a reasonable spot, I think, for Frank to attack into the 2 creatures and possibly bluff, but the risk of him losing his Falconer plus taking 4 damage on the way back means he's going to hang back on defense.
Good news for Karsten is Ben Williams doesn't have much of a play here. Awaken the Bear was his draw for the turn, but his green mana not online yet. It will be next turn because he played Thornwood Falls. And we will unmorph Mistfire Weaver and start our assault in the air. That's 3 damage. And Frank goes to 17.
This is a bit of relief for Frank. I think he's happy to sort of play this kind of game. He wants to get in a damage race. That's where his deck's going to be at its best.
Yeah. No 4th land yet for Frank. Did spy in his hand, though. He's got his Wingmate Rock in addition to that Falconer Boon combo. Once he hits his lands, he'll be doing the 2 most powerful things his deck's capable of.
Yep.
And see how he wants to swing back. The Falconer is a pretty safe attack here. Does he want to try to trade with the Sandbar?
Well, the thing is, when you have a deck that's flush with this many combat tricks, you sort of want to just build up your board, let the board get built up as much as possible to maximize your combat tricks. It's a big risk if Ben goes and makes a block here because the fewer and fewer creatures Frank has, the less and less his combat tricks matter.
Yeah, and it's really, it's awkward, though, because his tricks are all the same trick. So there's not too much diversity. We do see pretty good play here. It's going to be a level up from the Falconer and a Savage Punch to take care of the Mistfire Weaver.
It's a very efficient turn for Frank here, given that he's stalled on lands.
5th land for Ben Williams. Right now, behind on the board, but ahead on mana. We know once Frank hits his land drops, things will be tough for Williams, so he's going to have to make the most of this. Frank knows it too. He's willing to just trade the Morph for the Sandbar if Ben allows it to happen. And he will not. The Sandbar is also has a bear inside of it, and it will trample over for 3. That's how that card works, right?
Yes, it is. And one of Frank's numerous below-average morphs in Sagu Archers goes to the graveyard.
Hey, at least that one is he could, in theory, flip up. Did we end up, how many of the morphs that are completely impossible?
He's got a Ripper in his deck, and that's
Ripper.
it.
Okay, we just have 1 blank morph.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. Leaping Master, the next play for Ben Williams. Frank, no play on his turn. Just going to sit back behind Abzan Falconer. Perhaps he has a Feat of Resistance for it. Ben also with some filler here, though, right?
Yes.
It's like Leaping Master with no white, Wetland Sandbar. These aren't all-stars either.
Though these would all be cards that Frank would be thrilled to add to his deck if he could cast them.
Well, here's land number 4 for Frank. That will turn on the Dragon Scale Boon in his hand. It's green, though. No Wingmate Rock as of yet.
When you're in Frank's position, you can't say, ugh, he has so many bad cards in his deck. You lose the ability to make that complaint.
But I think Frank's actually ahead here. And I'm kind of in, he plays Alabaster Kieran and passes. I'm interested in how this draft pod plays up. I've always made the comment that I ask players a lot of times in Limited, would you rather play in a draft pod where everybody played nice and they have good decks in archetypes, or would you rather play in a draft pod where everybody just smashed into the wall and no one's playing anything reasonable?
I prefer the second. That's my kind of game.
Right, and I was saying, me too. I like the real big train wrecks, and it might be like Frank's deck's by no means good, but remember, it only is good and bad only is relative to your opponents. And if everybody wrecked, Frank, in the land of the blind people, Frank may be the one-eyed king.
The issue, unfortunately, is that the manner in which Ben's deck is bad matches up pretty well against Frank. He's got a lot of bad stuff at the bottom of his curve.
Got a lot of 2-1s.
But that's, if you're going to play bad cards against Frank, you want him to be those.
I mean, among the things that Ben's playing is a pair of Whirlwind Adepts. That's the 4/2 Prowess Hexproof for 5. Real good one. A Wetland Sandbar, an off-color Leaping Master, 2 Canyon Lurkers. That's the 5/2 morph. You know, this is a blinding spray. So there's
some rough ones.
But here's the block. But he does have some real cards, and this one's Snowhorn Rider.
And a very good turn here for Frank, holding back and getting that double block, and that was a 1-for-1 trade and Ben's entire turn. And the Kieran still holding the fort back against the 2-1s on Ben's side of the table. So very good damage race management thus far from Frank.
Frank is just waiting until he draws that Plains, and then the big Wingmate Rock can bring it home.
The rest takes care of itself.
That card will be essential in a lot of his wins. See on Williams' side another Snowhorn Rider, Canyon Lurkers, Alpine Grizzly, Whirlwind Adept, Aerostorm.
It's a rough hand.
It's a lot of 5s that are only kind of good.
Yeah, a lot of C-minuses that are his whole turn.
I love these kind of drafts, though, where both players are just like, well, I kind of have some things. We're not good. And there we go. Whirlwind Adept, the 4/2 Hexproof Prowess, enters the battlefield for Ben Williams. Frank hits a 5th land, but it's a forest. Can't cast a Wingmate Rock just yet.
Frank's mana slightly biased towards green, 9 forest, 8 plains.
We'll see how much he wants to outlast. What Frank has going for him is his creatures are bigger right now. He is well suited to play a defensive plan, not to mention 2 copies of Dragon Scale Boon in the hand.
And the Kieran's great in this kind of game because you can be attacking, leaving up all of your mana, control offense and defense.
You always have to wonder just how much. What happens if Frank just starts putting all these boons on the Kieran, you know?
Well, maybe that's a game-winning play, but only if Ben really has nothing going on. And if Ben has not that much going on, then these tricks are also valuable, you know, messing up Ben in combat, fizzling his tricks, what have you.
Yeah, and speaking of fizzling tricks, looks like Ben's going to go for Aerostorm here, and this is going to be not what he wants to have happen. Aerostorm into 5 open mana against green-white often leads to problems, and this will be no exception. He hasn't attacked yet. Raid hasn't triggered, so it's only going to be 4 damage. And Longshot Squad, a 5/5.
The consolation prize here has been at least gets to send in the Prowess creature, but that is, and Frank will probably fall to 9 here, as I think he's not going to really look to chump block here or trade the Longshot Squad, but this is a very good turn again for Frank.
Yeah, and if Frank's really worried about going to 9, he can trade the Longshot Squad with the Whirlwind Adept, but I think you're right. 9 is a reasonable spot to be at here. Frank has complete control over the board right now, another combat trick, and a Wingmate Rock in hand.
Now, if he has a second Dragon Scale Boon or some other trick, it makes blocking here a lot more attractive.
Yeah, he actually does go ahead and trades the Longshot Squad with the Whirlwind Adept. So it ends up being a 2-for-2, the Boon and the Aerostorm. But here you go, swing from Kieran, second plane's drawn, and here comes the finisher. Wingmate Rock is the play for Frank Karsten.
When the game is all about, you know, face down Sago Archers and Sandbars and off-color Leaping Masters and some such, it seems really unfair when someone
plays Wingmate Rock.
Escalates the conflict in such a manner.
Well, see Ben surveying his hand, no real answers to these pair of 3/4 flyers.
Boom. Boom.
Gonna play face down Snowhorn Riders and Alpine Grizzly, but 15 to 14. Now, remember, this Wingmate Rock will gain 3 on each attack as well. I just don't know if Ben can even race.
It's tough to do against this card.
We'll see what we want on Karsten's turn. He can sit back behind more Dragon Scale Boons, swing the flyers. It's a 2-turn clock here, not to mention Frank will gain some life. It's the whole team. Swings for 8. Frank gains 3. And there's a reason most players think this is the best rare in the set.
And I like this attack from Frank. He just wants to make sure it's safe, but when you're looking at a 2-turn clock, the fact that you're not dying on the way back seems like a good spot just to send in everything and put Ben to the test next turn to have an answer to one of these flyers. And even then, it's not even like the game's over. It's just gameplay proceeds.
And even more of the big finishers. This is the Tusked Colossadon from Frank
Boom.
Karsten. Second, Awaken the Bear. Draw from Ben Williams. And this may be all she wrote for the first game. Wingmate Rock. Once again, pivotal to Frank's wins. Though, to be fair, he may have been able to win this game without Wingmate Rock. Certainly made it easier.
Yes, made it a lot easier, but he had pretty firm control even up until that point. But the Rock makes it very easy.
I don't think in the cards that Ben Williams drafted, not very many answers to Wingmate Rock at all. And, you know, the best answers being Cancel and Windstorm right now in the set. He has, despite being blue and green, has neither of those. And Frank's going to swing for lethal here, gaining 4 up to 21, and has a lethal aerial swing. And can Ben stay alive? He can Blinding Spray. That'll save him a turn. You almost don't even want to show this trick.
I don't know. Is he actually drawing a nothing here?
I don't think he has an answer to these Wingmate Rocks. He does have a Trap Essence in the main. And what a coup that would be if he were to pull it off. And he's throwing everybody in front of Tusked Colossadon. Colossadon actually here will be able to kill, I believe, everything. Yeah, all 4 guys. It's a 6/5. It's only 6 points of toughness. What a beast here.
Well, the Blinding Spray is still on top of it.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
so only 2 power. So he can take two things down, or one of the bigger guys down.
He can take down the 4/2, both the 2/1s, or what's behind the mystery box.
It'll be Alpine Grizzly that trades. And Abzan Battle Priest, the next play for Karsten. Williams at 7. He's going to take 8 in the air. He'll need an answer. Does he find one? Mardu Heart Piercer looks like was the draw. Good card, but doesn't deal with any of the flying threats. No white to jump Leaping Master for the chump blocks. Snowhorn Rider is Ben's morph.
Probably one of the better cards in Ben's deck, but certainly not in this spot.
In the face of Wingmate Rock, a lot of Ben's cards really don't look very good.
Do you mean the Sandbar or do you mean the Leaping Master?
I mean, if only he had white mana on his list. Leaping Master would be still, yeah. Swing with the morph puts Frank to 21 down to 19. I like the chops here and playing it out, though. I think Ben is dead to the next swing.
You may see one more card out of Frank.
Sure.
He might show you some other trick.
And he's going to go for the swing in the air. And that'll do it. Game 1 over to Frank Karsten and his green-white Dragon Scale Boon deck.
His Wingmate Rock deck.
His Wingmate, his Wingmate Rock and a supporting crew. Dabs on Falconer is another card.
Yep.
I think those are his cards.
Yeah, those are his. Well, the density of combat tricks. That's the strategy here. And then
check it. The density of Dragon Scale Boon.
Yes. Well, he has a feat of resistance as well.
Okay.
And then the Falconer and the Wingmate Rock is where his power comes from.
Right.
Well, I guess the Tusked Colossadon as well has a lot of
that guy can
literal power, not a lot
of power,
not a lot of figurative power.
Yeah.
Any good action in Ben's sideboard here? Try to clean up. sort
Right.
of-
So looking at what he can do to clean up, I mean, he's got to be worried about Wingmate Rock. I don't see an answer to Wingmate Rock in his deck. One card I actually like that he has in his board that I think would be good here is Dragon Grip. And this is a 3-mana aura that gives a guy +2/+0 in first strike. It gains flash if you have a creature with power 4 or greater. I think a lot of the times we saw Ben's creatures just get blanked by Frank's larger creatures. I think Dragon Grip would go a long way to changing the math on that.
And do you want to try to match him trick for trick to some extent too?
A little bit. I wouldn't mind having my own trick there. Really, Frank's creatures, what Frank's going to try to do is get one big creature and just sit on it, and either give it lifelink with the Battle Priest, flying with the Falconer, or he'll play Wingmate Rock. And Frank's going to try to stall up the game till he does one of those things. Ben's deck's a little short on ways to punch through, so I think he wants to board in any card that could do that. And that's why I like the Dragon Grip in his deck. Similarly, he does have 3 copies of Barrage of Boulders in the sideboard. Not a great card, but faltering Frank's team seems pretty relevant here.
Well, the issue right now is Ben the aggressor or is he the control deck in the matchup?
Well, I think he's the aggressor here. Frank's late game is, like I said before, he has these Dragon Scale boons with the Falconer and Battle Priest. That's a late game that I don't think Ben can match. And of course, Wingmate Rock. Neither of those seem very good for Ben to try to fight through.
Well, Frank's deck is not really that flush with answers for Snowhorn Riders. Just the one Smite the Monsters, it looks like.
Yeah.
So that's another avenue that Ben has in the matchup.
His answer is probably to double block it. I think would be Frank's main answer to Snowhorn Rider. And maybe with the help of a Dragon Scale boon, maybe he only gets 1-for-1 to buy a Snowhorn Rider.
Sure.
But for the most part, I think that's how he's going to try to get through these cards, is just more creatures. Ben has some tricks of his own, though. He does have 2 Awaken the Bear, a Become Immense, and a Dragon Scale boon of his own.
It's like Ben taking a quick mulligan here.
On the play here, he'll be down to 6. Interesting how this draft did turn out, though. Don't think either player particularly thrilled about their deck.
Well, Frank's deck is a lot. I feel like it's more cohesive at least. It's a
Yeah,
deck-
it has a plan.
It's got a game plan for sure. Ben's deck is, I mean, it is in a wedge, but it is just kind of low on power, not a great curve. And of those 2 type of decks, I'd much rather have Frank's. Low in power level, there's definitely some sketchy cards, but he has a game plan he can execute.
All right, we are underway. Ben Williams starts off with a Rugged Highland. And he has his mana online. This is once again the off-color Leaping Master. So Wetland Sandbar version 2. And Frank has one of his own 2-drops. This is Highland game.
Nice one to have on the draw in the face of this 2-1.
Will they trade? Ben offers, Frank accepts.
And Frank just trying to maximize Ben's mulligan here. Trade 1-for-1, doesn't matter if you get the Leaping Master or the trick. Just with the opponent on the play with a mulligan, try to maximize that.
Yeah, a morph out of Ben Williams. And Frank, stuck on 2 lands on Forest, plays a Smoke Teller.
We saw this last game too. Frank had some mana trouble.
It's interesting because it's kind of funny. Frank drafted his entire deck to be about maximizing his consistency. You know, his mana base is 9/8, yet he's getting in mana trouble both games. And here's the blowout. Ben swings with the morph. Frank calls him on the block, and it's Dragon Scale boon on Williams' side.
And if Frank is not in a position to handle, say, something like a Snowhorn Rider, it may be worth the risk of taking the block there, but Dragon Scale Boon was the card I think Frank was hoping to avoid the most.
Ben has a lot of scary morphs here. It could be a Snowhorn Rider. Even a Canyon Lurkers would be a really terrifying card for Ben to unmorph. Frank does get to play, though. He did hit his 3rd land and the planes he needed to make Obzon Falconer. One of his better tricks here. And Ben Williams with land 5. Going to cast Tuskguard Captain, then swing the 4/4. Remember, that guy has trample now thanks to the captain.
Yes.
So not too much of a difference between a Canyon Lurker and a Snowhorn Rider because of that Tuskguard Captain. Frank's down to 18, so he still has some room to find an answer, but definitely behind on the board.
And it's tough because it's, how's he ever going to block in this game, especially when he's missing land drops. If all he can do is cobble together morphs, it's going to be hard for him to generate a position where he's ever making any inroads on the board.
Yeah, he's going to level the Obzon guide, or outlast it. He does have Savage Punch in his hand. I think we're going to see him once again use the trick where he's going to punch out that Colonian Tusk, or that Tusk Guard Captain. That'll take care of it. The 4/4 is back to just being a regular 4/4, no trample.
This is a starting point. The Falconer's still not in a position to block next turn.
But here's Canyon Lurkers. That guy's a 5/2. Now he's a 7/4. He crashes in and puts Frank down to 11. And Ben Williams, just one card remaining in his hand. Frank may be able to stabilize here. Canyon Lurkers can trade in combat. So Ben does have 2 copies of Awaken the Bear in his deck. And that's got to be a fearsome card from Frank.
It's tough because Frank's going to be in a position where he's going to either make a double block, or he's going to have to put a creature that's just barely big enough or something along those lines. And, Awaken the Bear might be something that Frank can't really overcome if that's the case.
His play for the turn was Ruthless Ripper. It's face down. Frank does not have the black card to flip it face up, otherwise it would be quite the perfect card here. And we'll see what Williams wants to do. He drew Snowhorn Rider for the turn. He's going to start by crippling, chilling that Obzon Falconer. Huge draw here, play there. His draw was Dragon Grip, and he's going to go ahead and swing for 8. Probably gets a chump block from Frank. Or for 7, rather. Either way, for the majority of Frank's life total.
I'm not sure what the plan here is long term if Frank blocks. It feels like he has to hope that Ben's hand is just 2 lands or something like that, and he's able to run a double block next turn. If he has Smite the Monstrous in his hand, then I could see him running a chump block because all he needs to do is get to the 4th mana. But if he doesn't have some sort of trump like that, I think he's got to take this hit and hope to get to land number 4.
Yeah, if he doesn't have a 4-drop in his hand that answers this Canyon Lurkers, then you're saying he just has to take it.
Yeah. Well, is he double blocking, or is he, trying to get to a spell? And that's the whole decision here.
Let's see here. Frank knows he's in a pretty tough spot. Has a full grip of spells, but having some mana problems for the 2nd game in a row. And it'll be a chump block. And you get to show that off-color morph off there. 2nd morph from Ben. We know this one's a Snowhorn Rider.
Trying to see if there's a 2nd off-color black morph that Frank could have splashed to try to get the combo here, but it does not appear so.
Draw was another morph on Frank's side. Going to play a morph and pass. Obzon Falconer staying tapped thanks to that crippling chill. And Ben's going to swing the team. We'll see if there's a chump block. That's a Snowhorn Rider, remember, under that morph. Will Frank run the chump blocks yet again?
Well, he chump blocked last turn. I feel like he has to chump block this turn because the die is somewhat cast, and it's also very likely he dies from the Snowhorn Rider that he saw last game. Because even if you're taking 7, you take 7 this turn, and then you double block next turn, so you're taking, 9 this turn, and then 2 more from the morph next turn in the scenario where you're trying to play a 2nd creature to double block.
Right, so it's just hard for him to play around that Snowhorn Rider, even if he knows it's there. He does get Obzon Falconer to help out next turn, which is good.
Yeah, that's true.
And he's going to go ahead and put the morph in front of Canyon Lurkers. Another chump block from Karsten.
Yeah, I guess my point is just if he was willing to chump block last turn, the case for chump blocking has become even more compelling this turn.
Yeah, there's War Behemoth that hits the bin. Frank gets to take a turn, this time with Obzon Falconer. Still on 3 lands. Draw from the turn is no help. Went down to 6 on that last attack. He can take 1 hit off Snowhorn Riders, but Canyon Lurkers is going to have to be blocked every turn now. And this is a tough spot for Karsten.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine him being able to. I mean, the hope here is that he can play second creature, double block the Canyon Lurkers, fall to 1. Maybe he has to Smite the Monsters plus a 4th land and he can end it. But if he doesn't have Smite the Monsters in his hand, not a lot to be gained by playing this game out because there's really no hope at that point. And I suppose it wasn't in his hand. He's just giving it up.
Yeah, and you saw there Frank Karsten waiting at least to see what the morph was, found out it was Snowhorn Rider, and he'll be on to game 3. And a lot of the time, so both games we've seen Frank keep somewhat sketchy mana, and I want to just kind of talk about that. He's clearly in his draft strategy values consistency. If I'm looking for a reason why he'd be keeping these land-light hands, I feel like a lot of it has to do with cards like Abzan Falconer and Wingmate Rock.
Also, 2 lands on the draw in your deck with a really low curve. It's hard to justify sending those hand back. I mean, he's gotten the bad end of it both games in a row now, even though he was able to win the first game. But I don't feel like either hand that he's played so far seemed worthy of a mulligan on the surface of it. Sometimes you just don't draw a land for your first 3 turns.
Sure.
And this happens,
Frank will get to be on the play for game 3. His deck really, both these decks actually really start their action on turn 4. Both of them have cards like Dragon Scale Boon. So we saw that game, Ben was the one to boon Frank, as opposed to the first game where the opposite happened.
Yeah.
In that situation, if they both have combat tricks, you'd think that Frank's favored. Ben's 4 combat tricks are 2 Awaken the Bear, a Becoming Ment, and a Dragon Scale Boon, whereas Frank's combat tricks are all Dragon Scale Boons. In that sense, you like the permanent pump, right?
Yeah, and well, to me, this matchup is just all about who's the aggressor. All those cards we just described, when you're the one attacking, Awaken the Bear, Dragon Scale Boon, those cards are great. When you're the one who's trying to block, those cards are much worse in your hand. So being on the play, being the first one to the board, that's what these games are about to me. Can't really say too much about that second game there because Frank really was never able to get anything going. But in game 1, Frank definitely controlled the terms of engagement. He was the aggressor, and his tricks were much better as a result.
Absolutely. We're going on to game 3 here. Yeah, a lot of these creatures, it seems like the one thing I like about Frank's side is that when there's, in an absence of tricks, it looks like Frank has better creatures a lot of the time. There are a lot of 2/1s and 4/2s in Ben's deck, so most of those will trade with Frank's creatures. But sometimes because he has cards like Long Shot Squad or some 2/3s, maybe he can actually win some combats.
I think Frank's got a very good matchup here. He's 2 colors against 3, and in the context of this matchup, he's not really making that many concessions in terms of power level. Ben's got some, he's got the Snowhorn Rider, he's got some good cards, but he has a lot of filler in his deck. I think that Frank was expecting, the battle would have to be his speed against someone else's power, but in this matchup, it's not even really about that. He can hang.
No, I think if he gets a consistent draw with spells, creatures, and mana, I actually think Frank's just the favorite here.
Yeah, I think so too. And he has the best card in the matchup by far in Wingmate Rock.
Yes, definitely. There aren't any rares in Ben's deck that really compete on that
There's
level.
no analog. Ben has nothing of even comparable power level to that card.
We go on. All right. To game 3 here. Ben Williams is on the draw, excuse me. Does have his mana in step though. Turn 1 has a tap land and an island to go with it. That's all 3 of his colors. Frank has both of his 2 colors, and this time has 4 mana, so he'll get to play as he hoped to. And it's kind of as to be expected in Frank's deck. It's a turn 3 morph. We know that this one is Witness of the Ages.
And Ben's hand appears to be a little bit on the slow side here.
Yeah, he has Sagu Archer, Mardu Heartpiercer, that one's a pretty good card. Trap Essence and Arrow Storm, all in his opener. At what point, if you have a card like Trap Essence, and you've seen Frank's deck, I mean, he certainly doesn't want to get Wingmate rocked. And I wonder just how much he'll play around that. Also has an Arc Lightning available to him, but decided not to cast it.
I think he's trying to, given what Frank's done in this game, he may be able to squeeze a little bit more. Either get the Falconer, maybe, or be able to get 2 things if things break just the right way after combat, or if Frank generates a 1-time this creature.
Morph swings in there, and then it's Abzan Battle Priest from Karsten. And Whirlwind Adept the draw for Ben. He'll swing his Morph, offer a trade with the Battle Priest. Frank declines, goes to 18. And here's going to be a pretty good blowout. Because of the declination of the trade there, here comes Mardu Heartpiercer. It's going to take out the Battle Priest.
Yeah, this is an ugly turn there for Frank. The first really big tempo swing from Ben in the whole match, really.
And we're back on Frank's turn. And here is the scary part, though. Ben has to now be worried about Wingmate Rock. Frank plays his 5th land and swings.
So this makes it a little bit more attractive for Ben to run a block here, because if you're worried about Wingmate Rock, well, that's Frank's whole turn, and you get to eat the morph for free.
Yeah, as we know, the morph is a Witness of the Ages, which means it would actually just eat the Heartpiercer.
Yeah. A lot of discipline there for Ben to run a no block here, because it is, you know, the threat of Wingmate Rock makes it pretty attractive, but he knows there's enough combat tricks in Frank's deck, enough things that could potentially unmorph over the top of his Heartpiercer that he's willing to run the risk of the Wingmate Rock there, which he may not be able to beat anyway. So he might just say, well, I'm not playing around that card because I can't win regardless.
Swing from both creatures from Ben. This is indicative of his draw for the turn. It was Awaken the Bear. That one will be able to take down Salt Road Patrol no matter which way Frank blocks. See if Frank reads that. He did see Awaken the Bear game 1, so he can probably read this for the trick that it is.
It's just if he's willing to eat up Ben's whole turn here. That's the upshot of blocking here is.
Yeah, it gets Ben's turn.
Ben's probably not following up with anything else after combat.
And does he go for the kill then? There's the danger if he blocks the morph, it could just be Canyon Lurkers, and then it would be a trade. Frank may be okay with that as well.
Well, the problem is if you block the Heartpiercer, that's not a trade. So Ben has the option of just opting out altogether of using his trick, dealing the 2 points of damage, and casting something else post-combat. So if you're in Frank's position, if you're willing to run the risk of the combat trick anyway, you may as well force Ben's hand.
Yeah. And he's going to say no blocks, which means Ben will just deal 4, save the combat trick for later, and continue to develop his board.
And this is fine depending on how Frank's trying to pace the game or what he's playing around, but he can't block the Heartpiercer there. It's either you're blocking the morph or you're not blocking anything.
And Ben shuffling that Arc Lightning to the front of his hand. It'll be 2 to the morph and 1 upstairs. Frank goes to 13, and he'll lose that Witness of the Ages. Ben, though, no land 5 will pass back. Frank for the green draw there. Somewhat stable on the board, but Frank's got to be concerned. Ben Mate was willing to attack into that Salt Road Patrol last turn. You have to think Ben will just continue to do it.
Yeah, he didn't squeeze any trick out of him last turn, so unless Ben was on some very bold bluff there, you're still playing against, you know, a Dragon Scale Boon, probably Awaken the Bear.
See just how Karsten wants to play this. He'd like to hold up some mana for that patrol. He's going to go ahead and start by swinging it. Puts Williams down to 15. If he's not going to call the block on the combat trick, might as well just attack.
Yeah.
We're going to play Smoke Teller and a face down morph, which I believe is Teamer Charger. That gives him the option of a double trade if Ben attacks here. Teamer Charger could trade with Mardu Heartpiercer.
Well, if we respected the possibility of a trick last turn, I think this is just single block with Smoke Teller in front of Morph as Frank's most aggressive block. I don't think he plays anything more than that.
Yeah, looking at Ben's hand, he's got a lot of tricks in here, but he's still stuck on 4 mana. It'll be just the Morph attacking from Williams. And I would imagine Smoke Teller will just jump in front of this guy.
To me, this is telling that the trick is not Dragon Scale Boon because it's almost free to send in the Heartpiercer if you have Dragon Scale Boon. So if it is a trick, it's most likely Awaken the Bear and not Dragon Scale Boon.
And Frank's got to be fine with that. He takes 3, loses a Smoke Teller, and eats Ben's turn.
Yeah. It's a little rough because the Heartpiercer is back on defense, so you're not necessarily hitting back for anything, but still, you're still trading turn for turn here, and the card you're getting out of Ben's hand seems really important the way this game is shaping up, and you're losing your Smoke Teller, which really isn't even worth very much anymore in the face of Ben's 2-3. So Frank's got to be happy. Very good discipline waiting until he was in a spot to trade a resource he didn't really care that much about for the Awaken the Bear.
Frank goes down to 10. His draw for the turn was a Dragon Scale Boon. And Boon will help him race as he can be on both the attacks and blocks with his team. And no two ways about it. Frank's going to send both his creatures. Ben has seen Dragon Scale Boon already. And if you're Ben, you may want to start trading here. It's difficult, right? You have such a good hand that there's some merit to playing it defensively, because when you hit lands, you'd think you'd be ahead.
The rough part about a block here is that if Frank does have Dragon Scale Boon and you're putting your Heart Pierce in front of something, that's a huge swing. And
right.
Ben's tools are not really that well set up to just beat a bunch of big creatures in play right now.
Heart Piercer will be in front of Salt Road Patrol. See if Frank wants to boon it anyway, and he will.
Yeah, this is a great spot. I mean, this thing is huge now.
4-7. Ben takes 2 off the morph.
It's the biggest thing I've ever seen.
Don't know if Frank has another green card. He does. He's going to go ahead and show Highland Game. Interested they didn't show the boon.
This is an extra 2 points of damage, 1 from the Temur Charger unmorphing into a 3-power creature, and then 1 from the trample trigger.
Back on Williams' turn. He does not have a good attack now that Salt Lake Patrol is there, and it is huge. Trap Essence available to him. He's going to make Thornwood Falls. That puts Ben up to 12. He may just Trap Essence whatever Frank casts, as long as Frank casts a creature. He also has the option of Mistfire Weaver. The other cards in his hand are a little too expensive right now. See which way he goes. Arrow Storm gives him a lot of play here, as that's a potentially 5 damage to the face.
But Frank might sniff it out. I guess because Frank showed Highland Game last turn, maybe you feel like he's going to cast it, but it involves you. Basically, Frank attacks here, you have to run a no block, and then you have to hope that Frank casts his creature post-combat, which is pretty risky. And Frank's the type of player, he's aware of the rares in the format. He's not going to be caught off guard by this. If he's playing into it, he's already calculated into his risk-reward assessment of the situation.
Yeah, here comes 7 damage from Frank. That'll put Ben down to 5. And you're right, if Ben wants to Trap Essence here, he just has to take the damage. And he'll go ahead and go to 5. And you're thinking we might just see Frank pass the turn right back?
If he doesn't have a second creature to follow up with, I think there's a good chance.
Well, here's Highland Game. And that will be the Trap Essence from Williams. Puts 2 counters on his morph. It feels like Williams is just trying to get a creature that can wall that Salt Road Patrol for a little bit.
Ben would be thrilled to cast 3 mana, put 2 counters on a creature. So this is, doesn't matter what Frank cast.
Alpine Grizzly was the draw. Still no land for Ben. He only has single red, so he can't cast the Arrow Storm just yet. 4 mana up on Frank's side too. He only has 1 card remaining, but good chance it's a Dragon Scale Boon. Ben just needs to survive here. We see what option he goes with.
Another defensive turn, it looks like, and just ship him back.
Yeah, maybe unmorphing his creature this turn, trying to get a good enough block. Frank should be a little wary.
If that's his whole turn here, it means that if Frank has another copy of Dragon Scale Boon, that's lethal if Ben's entire turn is just unmorphing, say a Snowhorn Rider or thereabouts.
Yeah, Snowhorn Rider, Sagu Archer.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, Ben won't play around the boon because he can't beat it. So Frank swings the team into it. I mean, he just has to be worried about swinging into Snowhorn Rider, right? That would be his worst case scenario.
If Frank does not have some sort of follow-up, another creature or something, a combat trick that makes this attack lethal regardless, it's a big risk.
It would eat the Salt Road Patrol and leave Ben down to 2 life, but ahead on the board. And Frank's been ahead the entire game.
The flip side is this getting any better for you? Ben's been missing land drops. He's got a lot of action in his hand.
I like this. What he's going to do is he's going to outlast the Salt Road Patrol. That means next turn, if he chooses to swing it, it will be Snowhorn Rider proof. And we get a chance to look at the morph. It was the Sagu Archer, not Snowhorn Rider. So now it is a 4/7 reach. The little Salt Road Patrol is going to need a little time to get big enough to fight through that. And here come the creatures from Williams. Alpine Grizzly and Wetland Sandbar. Respecting Dragon Scale Boon, he's just going to pass back.
Although I'm not sure if he should respect Dragon Scale Boon in that spot because the odds are so high that last turn if Frank has it, he's just attacking for lethal. I think that might have been a spot where Ben needed to have attacked with the Sagu Archers.
If he did, he puts Karsten down to 6, which gives him the potential later in the game to swing for lethal and then Arrow Storm Frank. He'd still need to draw the second red first to make that kind of play. But there's some danger here. That Salt Road Patrol is going to keep getting bigger. Provided Frank, I suppose, has to be able to take the time to outlast it. And that's starting to get pretty dangerous.
Exactly. There's obviously a risk with Ben shipping in that turn with the Archers. But based on what I saw last turn out of Frank, if I was in Ben's seat, I would feel like the coast was clear. I would think that Frank's hand is either lands or combat tricks that don't really matter.
Swing with 1 and maybe even a second. No, it's just going to be the Salt Road Patrol attacking. Ben has some options. He can just chump it with the Sandbar. He can put Sagu Archers in front of it. It is technically not big enough to kill them, though a Dragon Scale Boon would change that math.
The way this game's shaping up, you know, Ben's not really trying to play this game in such a way to beat a copy of Dragon Scale Boon. And so right now this Salt Road Patrol is at 8 toughness, goes up to 10, 4, 8, 10. The way Ben's playing this, if he's really that concerned about Dragon Scale Boon, I'm putting all 3 in front.
Yeah, yeah, you could just put everybody in front, be willing to trade. And that's what he's going to do. Yep. Everybody gangs up on the Salt Road Patrol.
There you go.
Feat of Resistance is the blowout card here. Frank has it. He does have 1 in his deck. Otherwise, this patrol's going to die. It's going to take some guys with it. But
well, if in the event that it's Feat of Resistance, Ben doesn't even lose the Archers.
Right.
He loses the same 2 creatures he would have lost anyway. Frank gets to keep the Salt Road Patrol, which is really bad, of course, but...
And it seems like Frank was just called out on a bluff there.
Yeah.
He lost his Salt Road Patrol. Ben lost 2 creatures that didn't really matter on that board, and now Frank with no follow-up play. I like where Ben's sitting.
The thing is that, you know, Frank's play the previous turn didn't indicate someone with a combat trick.
Right. It's a face-down more from Ben. It's Mistfire Weaver. He could have played Bloodfire Expert, but instead wants to hold up the 3 mana to give something like Sagu Archer Hexproof. And you wonder whether or not we're going to see some creatures swinging here. Aerostorm still not activated. And here comes the Mistfire Weaver. Frank could just block and trade here if Ben's offering. But Frank not wanting to risk that a Snowhorn Rider will go ahead and take 2. Kind of a cheeky attack there from Williams.
It also shuts down. If Frank trades, then it means that Wingmate Rock may not even be good anymore.
Yeah. Here is the next play. It's going to be Whirlwind Adept. The 4/2 Hexproof Prowess. Another land from Karsten. And things are starting to look grim on his side. He's down to 8. Second red source for Williams. It comes into play tapped. I believe we will see and position of strength right now for Williams.
Just trying to see, can he just go for the kill this turn? He's trying to be super careful because he feels like he's in a commanding position.
Both the Morph and the Sagu Archer will swing. The Morph is Mistfire Weaver, saving that Hexproof activation. And this is going to force some action on Frank Karsten's side.
Yeah.
Teamer Charger is going to get ready to attempt to trade with Mistfire Weaver. Frank knows if it's Snowhorn Rider, he's probably dead. And unmorphing won't help here. That's just going to be a trade. Says, okay, Frank goes down to 4. Dragon Scale Boon from Teamer Charger. Now that'll cause Ben to unmorph. Now the trade will happen. 5-3 trades with 3-1. And Frank Karsten 2 for 1 to there.
Great sequence even there by Ben.
Frank's down to 4 off this attack. A tap land into play for Ben is a second red. He has the Aerostorm. He has lethal in hand. Witness of the Ages for Frank. That's not going to be helpful. He plays a more face down. And it looks like Ben Williams has it. Going to swing. Just deal it with combat. And that's good enough there. 2-1. Ben Williams wins the match over Frank Karsten. Keeps his top 8 hopes alive.
And for Frank, looks like he's out of running for the top 8. Did not have a great draft. And game 3 there, flooded out a little bit. I thought the matchup was pretty solid for Frank after we saw the first 2 games there, but Frank with a little bit too much mana, and Ben able to leverage a little bit of the 3-color power of his deck there later on in the game.
Yeah, and that looks like one of the difficulties for Karsten. Without the Obzon Falconer and Wingmate Rock, his deck does lack a real finisher in it.
It's just